Shalom, shalom, Brother George, back at it again with another video. And in today's video, we'll be going into, putting strange women away, man. Right? A lot of brothers in the truth, they kind of whip through the spirit. A lot of us still have strongholds and other past relationships that we've been in that hinder us from loving the people that we're with now, or that even, continue to give us less demons and just overall make our walk with the Most High even harder, especially when they're heathens, right? So I'm gonna just go through a couple of accounts of, putting away those strange women, not letting a woman, have that power over you, right? So I'm gonna start with the book of First Kings, and I'm gonna read chapter 11, verses 1 through 7. This is the book of First Kings, chapter 11, and verse 1. But King Solomon loved many strange women together with the daughter of Pharaoh, women of the Moabites, Ammonites, Edomites, Zidonians, and Hittites, of the nations concerning which the Lord said unto the children of Israel, Ye shall not go into them, neither shall they come into you, for surely they will turn away your heart after their gods. Solomon clave unto these in love. And he had 700 wives, princesses, and 300 concubines, and his wives turned away his heart. For it came to pass, when Solomon was old, that his wives turned away his heart after other gods, and his heart was not perfect with the Lord his God, as was the heart of David his father. For Solomon went after Ashtoreth, the goddess of the Zidonians, and after Milcom, the abomination of the Ammonites. And Solomon did evil in the sight of the Lord, and went not fully after the Lord, as did David his father. Then did Solomon build an high place for Chemosh, the abomination of Moab, and the hill that is before Jerusalem, and for Molech, the abomination of the children of Ammon. Right? In the book of Deuteronomy, it says specifically, I believe it's the book of Deuteronomy chapter 22, or I believe it's somewhere in the 20s, where it says that we're not supposed to make our children pass through the fire, right? Because at that point in time, Molech was a god where people would put their babies through the fire as a sacrifice unto him, the same way that we would burn incense unto the Lord, right? So just showing that Solomon, a great king of renown in Israel, one of the most peaceful kings ever. There was no war in his time, right? There was no Hebrew servants, no brethren, serving one another, right? But even he was able to go off due to those strange women, because, women truly do hold some type of power, right? Because they give you pleasure, they do all of these things, so sometimes they can easily cause your mind to slip, right? So let's jump to the book of Ezra. I'm going to go to chapter 10, right? And I'm kind of going to bounce all over the place through the spirit, but I'm going to start off with the book of Ezra, chapter 10, and I'm going to read verses 2 through 6. It's the book of Ezra, chapter 10 and verse 2. And Shechaniah, the son of Jehiel, one of the sons of Elam, answered and said unto Ezra, We have trespassed against our God, and have taken strange wives of the people of the land. Yet now there is hope in Israel concerning this thing. Now therefore let us make a covenant with our God to put away all the wives and such as are born of them, according to the counsel of my Lord, and of those that tremble at the commandment of our God, and let it be done according to the law. Salakia. Verse 4. Arise, for this matter belongeth unto thee. We also will be with thee, be of good courage, and do it. Then arose Ezra, and made the chief priests, the Levites, and all Israel to swear that they should do according to this word, and they sware. Then Ezra rose up from before the house of God, and went into the chamber of Johanan the son of Eliashib. And when he came thither, he did eat no bread, nor drink water, for he mourned because of the transgression of them that had been carried away. All right. Now I'm going to jump to verses 9 through 12. This is the book of Ezra, chapter 10 and verse 9. Then all the men of Judah and Benjamin gathered themselves together unto Jerusalem within 3 days. It was the 9th month, on the 20th day of the month. And all the people sat in the street of the house of God, trembling because of this matter and for the great rain. And Ezra, the priest, stood up and said unto them, Ye have transgressed, and have taken strange wives to increase the trespass of Israel. Now therefore make confession unto the Lord God of your fathers, and do his pleasure, and separate yourselves from the people of the land, and from the strange wives. Then all the congregation answered and said with a loud voice, As thou hast said, so must we do. All right, now we'll jump to verses 14 through 17. This is the book of Ezra, chapter 10, and verse 14. Let now our rulers of all the congregation stand, and let all them which have taken strange wives in our cities come at appointed times, and within the elders of every city, Salakia, and the judges thereof, until the fierce wrath of our God for this matter be turned from us. Only Jonathan, the son of Asahel, and Jahaziah, the son of Tikvah, were employed about this matter. And Meshullam and Shabbatai the Levite helped them. And the children of the captivity did so in Ezra the priest, with a certain chief of the fathers, after the house of their fathers. And all of them by their names were separated and sat down on the first day of the 10th month to examine the matter. And they made an end with all the men that had taken strange wives by the first day of the first month. Right? So the book of Ezra had to make a covenant with the Most High and say, hey, man, we kind of going to put this to rest. Right? Let's go to the book of Nehemiah. The book of Nehemiah gives someone the same account. So let's go to the book of Nehemiah, chapter 13, and I'm going to read verses 1 through 3. It's the book of Nehemiah, chapter 13, and verse 1. On that day, they read in the book of Moses in the audience of the people, and therein was found written that the Ammonite and the Moabite should not come into the congregation of God forever. Right? That's in the book of Deuteronomy as well. Because they met not the children of Israel with bread and with water, but hired Balaam against them, that he should curse them, howbeit our God turned the curse into a blessing. Now it came to pass, when they had heard the law, that they separated from Israel all the mixed multitude. Right? So that mixed multitude is going into, that mixed nation, that mix of people. Right? Now let's go to the book of Deuteronomy. Let's get something in the law, man, the Torah. It's the book of Deuteronomy, chapter 7, and I'm going to read verses 1 through 4. It's the book of Deuteronomy, chapter 7 and verse 1. When the Lord thy God shall bring thee into the land whither thou goest to possess it, and hath cast out many nations before thee, the Hittites, and the Girgashites, and the Amorites, and the Canaanites, and the Perizzites, and the Hivites, and the Jebusites, 7 nations greater and mightier than thou. And when the Lord thy God shall deliver them before thee, thou shalt smite them and utterly destroy them. Thou shalt make no covenant with them, nor shew mercy unto them. Neither shalt thou make marriages with them. Thy daughter thou shalt not give unto his son, nor his daughter shalt thou take unto thy son. For they will turn away thy son from following me, that they may serve other gods. So will the anger of the Lord be kindled against you and destroy thee suddenly, which is the exact same thing that happened to King Solomon because of the many wives that he overtook. Right? Because obviously we know that King Solomon was able to account for the law where it said that you're supposed to provide. He was King Solomon, man. Right? He had many temples, palaces, gold, and so on and so forth. So he had the means to provide for these women. But the problem came in where his heart got changed for the Lord, because the Most High seeks after hearts, pertaining to the book of 1 Samuel chapter 16 and verse 7. Right? He's going after those that are of pure heart. Also in the book of Psalms. Right? Let's go to the book of 2 Corinthians chapter 6. It's the book of 2 Corinthians chapter 6, and I'm going to give verse 14. Be ye not unequally yoked together with unbelievers, for what fellowship hath righteousness with unrighteousness, and what communion hath light with darkness? Right? So we're the light of the world. Like the scriptures say, we're supposed to be a light unto the Gentiles, as well as a light to our own people that may not know. Right? But so we can't be equally yoked with these people that don't believe, right? Because they weren't given the law, right? Nor do they truthfully believe and know in the Most High. And I'm going to get some scriptures to back that up. All right, let's go to the book of Psalms. All right, and I'm going to get the classic in the book of Psalms, chapter 147. It's the book of Psalms, chapter 147, and I'm going to get verses 19 and 20. He sheweth his word unto Jacob, his statutes and his judgments unto Israel. He hath not dealt so with any nation. And as for his judgments, they have not known them, praise ye the Lord. So they don't know the judgments and the statutes. That's why we should not be unequally yoked with them, man. Because they don't know the law, right? Like the scriptures say, that we're not supposed to cause a stumbling block unto one of our brethren. So we're not supposed to put things in our way that could potentially harm our spirit. And that goes with women, drugs, anything that you may have a stronghold on, man. All right. Now, let's go to the book of 2 Ezra, chapter 3. Book of 2 Ezra, chapter 3. I'm going to read verses 11 through 16, because a lot of people will say, oh, well, we all came from, Adam and so on and so forth. But let's get this straight. All right. It's the book of 2 Ezra, chapter 3, and verse 11. Nevertheless, one of them that left this, namely Noah, with his household, of whom came all righteous men. And it happened that when they that dwelt upon the earth began to multiply and had gotten them many children and were a great people, they began again to be more ungodly than the first. Right? So the whole reason why the Most High destroyed the people in Noah's time was because they were wicked. Now he's saying that since he saved Noah and we're beginning to multiply again, that the people are being more wicked than the first, right? Continuing on in verse 13. Now when they lived so wickedly before thee, thou didst choose thee a man from among them whose name was Abraham. Right? So everybody was coming from Noah and Noah's sons. Right? But now you have Abraham saying that he chose somebody specifically. Right? Verse 14. Him thou lovest, and unto him only thou shewest thy will. Right? So since we come from the seed of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, we're the only people that have that covenant pertaining to the book of Genesis, chapter 17. Right? Going on to verse 15. And madest an everlasting covenant with him, promising him that thou wouldest never forsake his seed. And unto him thou gavest Isaac, and Isaac also thou gavest Jacob and Esau. As for Jacob, thou didst choose him to thee, and put by Esau, and so Jacob became a great multitude. Right, so let's go check out that covenant in the book of Genesis, chapter 17 and verse 7. The book of Genesis, chapter 17. You know what? We can start at verse 2. And I will make my covenant between me and thee, and will multiply thee exceedingly. And Abraham fell on his face, and God talked with him, saying, As for me, behold, my covenant is with thee, and thou shalt be a father of many nations. Right? And it also said the same thing in the book of Romans. Right? Going on to verse 5. Neither shall thy name any more be called Abram, but thy name shall be Abraham, for a father of many nations have I made thee. And I will make thee exceeding fruitful, and I will make nations of thee, and kings shall come out of thee. And I will establish my covenant between me and thee and thy seed after thee and their generations for an everlasting covenant, to be a God unto thee and to thy seed after thee. Man, come on. All right. Now let's go to the book of Psalms, chapter 14 and verse 1. The book of Psalms, chapter 14 and verse 1. The fool has said in his heart, there is no God. They are corrupt. They have done abominable works. There is none that doeth good, right? So pertaining to the heathens, they're the ones that say that, man. In the book of Jeremiah, also in the book of Isaiah, it says that when Jerusalem was broken down, that these other nations will go clapping and hissing at us, saying, where's the God of Israel? Is this God's chosen people, right? So this also pertains to the heathen, not just Israel, right? But the Lord isn't the author of confusion, man, right? Let's get that in the book of 1 Corinthians, chapter 14 and verse 33. The book of 1 Corinthians, chapter 14 and verse 33. For God is not the author of confusion, but of peace, as in all churches of the saints, mankind. All right, so let's go back to the book of 2nd Esdras. Because the Lord isn't dealing with these other nations, man. Back to chapter 3, and I'm going to get to verse 32. This is the book of 2nd Esdras, chapter 3 and verse 32. Or is there any other people that knoweth thee beside Israel? Or what generation has so believed thy covenants is Jacob? Right? So these other people don't believe in the Most High. They have all of these different gods. Right? Baalam, Baalim, Baal Peor. So like if I'm missing a few, but those are just, a lot of the big ones that we see in scriptures a lot. Molech, the one that Nebuchadnezzar had, right? Buddha, all of these other different people. Right? And they worship them, which is why we should not follow them or even, come into them. Because once you come into that woman, you now have everlasting soul tie, not just with her, but between the Most High as well. So all of her problems and the idolatry and things that she could be into, those are now on you as well from that exchange of energy and seed. Right? Let's go to the book of Tobit, chapter 4, and I'm going to get verse 12. This is the book of Tobit, chapter 4 and verse 12. Beware of all whoredom, my son, and chiefly take a wife of the seed of thy fathers, and take not a strange woman to wife, which is not of thy father's tribe, for we are the children of the prophets, know Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. Remember, my son, that our fathers from the beginning, even that they all married wives of their own kindred, and were blessed in their children, and their seed shall inherit the land. Come on, man. All right, let's go to the book of Leviticus. The book of Leviticus, and I'm going to go to chapter 21 and verse 14. The book of Leviticus, chapter 21 and verse 14. A widow or a divorced woman or profane or an harlot, these shall he not take, but he shall take a virgin of his own people to wife, right? So even going down to the high priest of the nation, man, the Levites, even they're not supposed to take other people to wife, man. All right. Let's go to the book of Genesis. I believe it's chapter 28 and verses 1 and 2. The book of Genesis, chapter 28 and verse 1. And Isaac called Jacob and blessed him and charged him and said unto him, Thou shalt not take a wife of the daughters of Canaan. Verse 2. Arise, go to Paddan Aram, to the house of Bethuel, thy mother's father, and take thee a wife from thence of the daughters of Laban, thy mother's brother. Right? So once again saying, take somebody of your own kindred. Right? And this is the last account that I'm going to get through one of our forefathers, man. It's the book of Judges, chapter 14. I'm going to read verses 2 and 3. And then I'm going to jump down to verse 13. It's the book of Judges, chapter 14, verses 2 and 3. And he came up and told his father and his mother and said, I have seen a woman in Timnath of the daughters of the Philistines. Now therefore get her for me to wife. Then his father and his mother said unto him, Is there never a woman among the daughters of thy brethren or among all my people, that thou goest to take a wife of the uncircumcised Philistines? And Samson said unto his father, Get her for me, for she pleaseth me well. Right? So even Samson's father had enough sense to say, whoa, hold on, we got all of these beautiful daughters of Zion out here, right? And you don't want one? You want somebody of the Philistines? Really? Right? If I'm correct, I believe Goliath was a part of the people of the Philistines, man. Going back to the scriptures, in plenty of our captivities, we went to war with the Philistines manifold, plenty of times in abundance, right? They hated us, right? I don't even think we ever had any leagues with them, because we even had leagues with certain Gentiles for certain things. Like in the book of Kings, I believe we had a league or some type of, agreement or contract with the people of Tyre and the Zidonians so that we could get the lumber to build the temple, right? But, pertaining to the Philistines, I don't think we had any of that, man, right? A very hateful people towards us. But Samson, because of lust, he still chose somebody from the other nations, right? So let's jump down to verse 13. But if ye cannot declare it me, then shall ye give me 30 sheets and 30 change of garments. And they said unto him, Put forth thy riddle, that we may hear it, man. Right? And then, when you continue on down, Samson basically, kind of got played through the spirit. Right? Because his wife eventually kind of janked him and backdoored him in the end. I believe it's something 15 on that as well. Okay, con. Salakia, there isn't. Right? But when you continue to read on, you figure out that Samson's wife kind of janked him and backdoored him, man. Right? Because she had evil and wickedness in her heart the whole time, the way that these other nations do. So this is just a quick exhortation to the spirit, right? Just to go get you an Israelite sister, man. If she's of your father's tribe, amazing, great. But please get you somebody that's a part of these tribes, man. These other women don't do it better, right? And just to close off on this, let's go to the book of Judah, chapter 10 and verse 19. So that I can remind all the females or remind all of the sisters that you come from the cream of the crop. You come from the best looking people on earth. Not even just pertaining to looks. It said Susanna was comely. It said Esther was comely, right? Deborah was an extremely confident warrior and judge in Israel. So women have power, man. Not even just as on the outside, but that pillar of rest can truthfully be something great. So don't waste your time with these women of the other nations, man. This is the book of Judah, chapter 10 and verse 19. And they wondered at her beauty and admired the children of Israel because of her. And everyone said to his neighbor, Who would despise this people that have among them such women? Surely it is not good that one man of them be left, who being let go might deceive the whole earth, man. So with that, I'm going to close out and say shalom. Lord willing, this was an edifying exhortation. I'll be back for another video, as soon as possible.